Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to give a few minutes for other people to join in. So while we're waiting, we could introduce ourselves in the chat section. I'm sure that's visible at the bottom of your screen. So we'll just give like 2-3 minutes for every other person to join in. Thank you. Okay, thank you again for joining. Welcome, everyone. Today's webinar is about accelerating digital adoption. And in layman's terms, it's discovering the use of virtual reality and immersive technology in business and how it impacts your business returns on investments. So this webinar is brought to you by Punuka nominees in collaboration with Punuka attorneys. So Punuka attorneys is a full service law firm that's client oriented. We believe in working together with the clients to achieve value and to solve whatever problems the clients may be faced with. Punuka has three partners. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Punuka has 5 partners and over 35 lawyers, and we're available at 3 locations. We have the Lagos office, we have the Asaba branch, and we have the Abuja branch. We have over 16 practice areas, and we work in about 12 sectors. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Sharon Jua, I'm an associate of the firm. I'm trained in forensic law, and I'm a tech enthusiast. So in the webinar, we're just going to be examining how immersive technology can be used to promote businesses. So it's going to range in different areas. We're going to be discussing medicine, law. Even if you have a small scale business, there's nothing to worry about. Virtual reality and immersive technology can be adopted and applied in your business as well. So today we have a very interesting lineup. We have Adora Wodo, we have Ahmed Arowoshegbe, we have Sir Gerald Kyo, and Ugochukwu Okike. So just a few things before we jump right into it. Everyone has been muted to avoid disruptions during the program. We're going to be recording this webinar, and we'll send the recordings and slides to participants at the end. So you don't have to worry yourself about taking notes, taking screenshots. We just want you to be able to concentrate and actively engage during the webinar. We're also going to make use of the Q&A section to ask questions to the speakers. I would really appreciate if, when asking the questions, you would indicate the speaker you would like to answer your question. So if you are throwing a question to Adora, you could start by writing Adora in bracket before you write your question, so we know who will take your question and for everything to be smooth. All right, so we're just going to wait a few more seconds. But meanwhile, I'm going to share a poll. I'd like to know how many people prior to today have heard of or are familiar with virtual reality. So you could just vote yes or no. Sorry, I'm going to launch the poll now. Okay, sorry for that minor disruption. So I have launched the poll. You can just vote yes or no. And we'll give, say, 30 to 45 seconds to enable everyone votes. The question again is, did you know about virtual reality prior to today? Have you heard of a virtual reality? Have you interacted with virtual reality? So give a few more seconds. Few more seconds for everyone to vote. Then we'll be closing the polls. All right, so I will lock the polls now. Sorry. All right, so I find it very interesting and it's quite delightful that more than half of our participants have encountered virtual reality before today. So we have 57 people voting yes, 57%, sorry, voting yes, and 43% voting no. All right. Thank you very much. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker. Our first speaker is Adora Nwodo. Adora is a software engineer at Microsoft, and she works in the mixed reality team. She graduated with a first class in computer science, and she runs a blog called Adora Hack. So Adora Hack was taken to YouTube, where she has content relating to the developer community, and she's very passionate about women in technology. So I'm going to hand over to Adora in a few seconds, and we can kick off.
Hi everyone. Good afternoon. Please, before I go on, I want to be sure that people can actually hear me. So please, if you can hear me, I would appreciate it if at least Sharon, you can let me know that people can hear me and then I can start.
Yeah, very audible. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So as she mentioned, today I'm going to be talking about As she mentioned, she already did like a brief introduction about me. Thank you so much for that, Sharon. Today I'm going to be talking about the opportunities for mixed reality in Africa. But before I start that conversation, I would want to give a very short story of my first interaction with mixed reality ever. And that's how I actually saw a hologram of Madonna dance. So this was about last year when I started my job at Microsoft. I was supposed to meet the head of my organization, the head of the mixed reality team, and I was excited about that. And that day was the first time I put on a HoloLens, which is the world's first holographic computer, a device created by Microsoft to enable businesses to do a bunch of amazing things with the mixed reality experience. So I put on this HoloLens and I was told to stretch out my palm and I was told to say the words cha cha cha. And I was just like, okay, what's going to happen? Whatever. So I put out my palm as I was told and I said the words cha cha cha. And the was next thing I saw was a hologram of Madonna on my palm, basically. And as the Nigerian person that I am, the first thing I shouted was blood of Jesus. And then I took like a few seconds to realize that, oh, wait, it's actually a hologram. It's not jazz. And it was really fascinating to me because I had heard about AR. One of the reasons why I was even excited to work in mixed reality in the first place was because I knew about AR, VR already. I felt like these technologies are amazing and they will take computing into, the next level. And me being able to not only see a hologram through a screen, but just because I'm wearing glasses, I can see this hologram and I can interact with this hologram. Basically, I could carry Madonna, I could put her on the table if I was tired of her being on my hands. Those few things got to me, and it just made me think that this is something very basic. This is just a very basic illustration of what I am going to be doing in my day-to-day job when I eventually start. But I found it really amazing because amazing things, like they say, little drops of water make a mighty ocean, right? Really amazing things are a collection of basic things creatively put together. And I found that really amazing. So as I finish telling you my story now, I'm going to jump into the main reason why I'm here today. But before I do that, I would like to introduce myself. Sharon has already done a great job doing that, so I won't spend so much time doing this anymore. My name is Adora, like she mentioned. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft Mixed Reality, and I am a tech content creator at Adora Hack. So I write tech articles and I create YouTube videos for developers. But recently, I've been doing a lot more than just tech videos. I tend to see myself doing some, career growth and productivity videos nowadays because I feel like it's good for you to, be in tech, but it's also great for you to have, soft skills, be productive, learn how to grow your career because hard skills can only take you thus far. So I've started doing this as well on Adora Hack, which is where I share all of these stories. And if you want to find me on Twitter, you can find me at Adora Mojo. So before we start, I'm going to say welcome to the decade of mixed reality. And I'm saying this because if you look at how computing has evolved over time, started with the really you know, the old computers that we had, those really big CRT monitors, and then we evolved into some sort of LCD. The monitors, things are getting smaller, basically. Nowadays things are getting bigger again. But at some point, things started getting smaller, basically. So we had the CRT monitors, we had like really old Windows XP, Windows 2000, all of those really old things moving forward, even the first generation, like Mac OS, for example, moving forward into, the better looking, in quotes, monitors and the nicer computers, moving forward into people having laptops, people having smartphones, people having tablets. And today we are seeing a bunch of people having, watches. And even in that space, there's still people, doing things with, AR glasses, VR headsets, and amazing things. And there was a survey that I saw that said that in 2020, by 2022, the global market for mixed reality, which is AR and VR, the global market for XR, which is AR, VR, and MR, will grow to, I think, a couple of billions. I honestly do not remember, but it was huge for me. So I see this decade, the 2020s, I like to call it, as the decade of mixed reality, the decade where a lot of companies, a lot of people are going to unlock the many possibilities globally. To be honest, a lot of people globally are going to unlock the many possibilities that mixed reality gives us. And I believe that as Africans, we do not want to be left behind. So to give you the real understanding of what mixed reality is, I'm going to talk about computing in the context of humans, the computer, and the environment. So I'm going to talk about humans and the computer. So humans interacting with the computer is a normal thing we call the human-computer interaction. I type on my screen. I type on my keyboard. I use my laptop on my screen. With my screen, I take my watch and then I check how many calories I've lost in the last walk. All of those things are human computer interactions because I'm directly interacting with the computer. The actual reality is more like humans and the environment. Oh, I see a ball and I kick it. Oh, I see the chair and I sit on it. Oh, I see the floor and I just decide to lie down. So that's me having interactions with the environment. The perception is basically the computer perceiving changes in the state of the environment and acting based on those changes. I'm going to use IoT as an example. So I have a friend that recently built an IoT fan where if the temperature is really high, the fan, goes slower so that it doesn't, give off as much air. And if the temperature is really low, the fan goes slower and doesn't give off as much air because it means that the room is already cold. And if the temperature is high, it means the room is hot, so the fan blows faster. And that happens because of the different sensors that the computer is using to perceive, the state of the environment. And imagine being able to bring human computer interaction, perception, and your actual reality into one thing. That is a thing that mixed reality gives you. That is able to be possible because mixed reality isn't just about perceiving, one thing. It's not just about, you know, going 100% into the virtual space as virtual reality takes you, or being, close to the physical world as AR takes you, which is with AR, for example, if you've used Instagram or Snapchat filters before, you've experienced AR because those digital elements are things that you sort of experience on through a mobile phone and you can see those experiences. But now with something like VR, it sort of brings the digital elements to your physical space and you don't just see them like you see them in AR, but you can interact with them, you can experience them. It's an immersive experience with both digital and physical elements in the same space, which I think is amazing. And if you are somebody that has watched Iron Man in the past, you would understand what I'm saying with Tony Stark and all the holograms that he usually plays with. And I feel like this diagram does justice to what I am trying to say in terms of the physical world being on one end, and that's where we are, the digital world being the 100% virtual reality experience, and mixed reality being something that basically blends the two of them comfortably and allows you to have this dual experience. So now let's talk about what makes a mixed reality experience. I've talked about rendering holograms, I've talked about gaze, um gesture as well. My hand is moving, mixed reality being able to sense my hands and feel my hands. Basically, I've talked voice as well is something that's really important. Like I said, when I was talking about my Madonna example, I remember saying that I said cha 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 and she appeared on my hands. That was because obviously there was a sensor on the mixed reality app that was made that could enable that experience. Basically, motion controllers as well, and spatial mapping. Spatial mapping being, being able to understand the environment that you are in, being able to understand the space that you are in. Who is using mixed reality? I'm going to play a short video for us.
The HoloLens is absolutely the most amazing piece of technology. Within 5 seconds, I realized that the world had changed. It was an immediate realization that this is something exciting and we have to be a part of this. Seeing things in 3D is something that you could do before with some classes. The thing that the HoloLens gives you is the ability to walk around those 3D objects and to really experience them as if they're in the room with you.
It is augmented reality, it is mixed reality. And what that means is I still see you, I still see this room and everything around me, but the digital content is inserted into the room as if it's actually there.
As a teacher, I can see what they're all looking at. And that's something that we think has real power.
It's actually opening up our interactions with each other.
The biggest drive is getting the anatomy curriculum completely.
Because of how much time I have left, I'm going to just go ahead to play the next video. So we've seen how people are currently doing it in medical education. So let's see how Microsoft Dynamics is using this as well.
Work today is more complicated than ever. The old ways of training cannot get new employees up to speed as fast as the experienced people are retiring. We need a better way forward. Introducing Dynamics 365 guides. Simple step-by-step instructions are easily written on a PC, and then holographic parts and icons are simply picked up and placed on the machine where the work is happening. From day one, employees are often expected to get work done, but the complexity can be overwhelming. Now, employees can learn by doing. This is a tool that works with existing processes, allowing a manager to get the right guides to their people. The instructions move with the employees, pointing them to the tools and parts they need, showing them exactly where they need to apply them. Employees get up to speed faster, with fewer errors and more confidence. A simple glance moves them through the instructions, meaning their hands are free to do the work.
Imagine how, as Africans, we've seen these videos. I didn't want to play them to the end because I just wanted us to get, at least insights on how this technology is being used and what it can be used for. We as Africans have seen what this is, but I mean, the videos we've seen are different, other people in different parts of the world using this technology. How can we as Africans use mixed reality? We should bring it home to the different contexts that we have. I mean, we are traditionally a cultured set of people. We have that we love, entertainment, partying. How do we bring using mixed reality to our businesses? How do we make mixed reality help, people in the sectors of education, health, in culture, in entertainment? How do we make it possible that we can use mixed reality to improve trust for Nigerian businesses in terms of like social media, different social media vendors or the e-commerce vendors? How can a brand like Innocent that makes cars use mixed reality in their different, I don't know what it's called, workshops, when they hire new mechanics to get them up to speed for this is how you fix this is how you sort this out. We've seen how Dynamics 365 guides are currently using an app for this as like tools for like workshopping and different things. How do we infuse all of these things that we know can be possible and create something amazing for Africans by Africans? Because at the end of the day, if you can imagine it, the truth is you can build this with XR. Gone are the days when, I mean, somebody imagined an airplane before it was created. Somebody imagined a car before it was created. Somebody imagined a car that can drive itself before Teslas existed. And now this is the time for us to use our creativity to create things that can actually help make our businesses succeed a lot better, create things that can solve unique problems that African businesses have using mixed reality. And if you want to build mixed reality things, right? There are different ways to get started. There's the Mixed Reality Toolkit, which is MRTK, and you can use it with Unity, you can use it with C#, basically. If you are a developer or you are a business that has developers and they build things on the web, they can use Babylon.js, Argon.js, or A-Frame together with tools like WebVR or WebXR or WebAR specifications to be able to build AR and VR on the web. You can also use OpenXR in conjunction with a tool called StereoKit. StereoKit is an open source tool that helps you build mixed reality experiences. You can also build mixed reality experiences with Unity or Unreal Engine if you are a C# person or you use these technologies. If you are also somebody that, for whatever reason, writes C++, you can use DirectX to build mixed reality experiences. And other technologies have ways that, you know, they are letting people infuse XR into their apps, into their experiences. If you have an AR Core or AR Kit enabled phone and you're an Android or iOS developer, you can use these SDKs to infuse, you know, AR, that whole AR augmented reality experience into your application. There are different SDKs as well made available to you for different things. Different things are available and different things are possible. Thank you for listening to my talk. So I'm going to hand power over back to Sharon.
All right, thank you so much, Adora. It was wonderful hearing about the holograms and your entire journey to discovering mixed reality and immersive technology. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm sure now we are better equipped with knowledge on the opportunities for virtual reality in Africa. So I'm going to be introducing the next speaker, who is Ahmed Aworoshegbe. So I don't know if you've heard of the AR/VR Association. It's a global association. And Ahmed is the chapter president in Nigeria. He also works in PwC. But what strikes me about Ahmed is that he has spent the past 6 years learning about emergence trends and the latest technologies. And he has worked with diverse teams to build and develop solutions all around the globe. So I'll hand over to Ahmed to take us through his own presentation. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, thank you, Sharon. Just to check my screen. Yeah. Yep. So, hi everyone. My name is Ahmed Aworoshegbe. I'm currently the chapter president for the VR AR Association here in Nigeria, and also an AR VR software engineer with PwC here in Nigeria. And today I'll be talking about how really we can apply VR AR across industries on how you can drive business ROI. So I'll be walking through an overview of AR VR, common AR VR misconceptions, real-world AR VR use cases, and ROI results, and really key steps you can use to drive AR VR ROI. So now before I proceed, I would like to do a brief introduction for the VR AR Association. So we are a global association. We just kickstarted here in Nigeria, and we have a great team. We have Adora, who is actually an advisory board for the VR AR Association. So just do a brief overview of XR, and what XR means here is XR is a broad term which encompasses AR, VR, MR. So when I say XR, just know I'm talking about a family name for AR, VR. and mixed reality. That's augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. So what's happening now is we're starting to see a change in trend of our computing. So we started with this big desktop with our CPU and keyboard. So these were the first generation of computing. And now we've moved towards second generation of computing, which is our smartphones, our Android, our iOS, our iPhones, Windows devices. And now we're starting to move towards a third generation of computing, and we call it spatial computing. And it's a computing which involves the use of eyewear. So you put something in your eyes, and you're seeing new things, you can call people, you can interact with people. And really, these are just overview of some headsets. We have the Vive, the Valve Index. This is just like some key players in the virtual reality industry in terms of hardware production. Also, something similar here in the mixed reality and AR, augmented reality industry. You have the NView to the Microsoft HoloLens. You have the ViewVix, and you also have the Magic. And then, really, before we can really start talking about, how you can drive return on investments on AR VR projects for your company, we need to address some misconceptions. And some of the misconceptions which I dragged out here is people believe older workers will be left behind, they cannot adapt to this technology. So a company uses XR, and does that mean that older workers won't be able to
We've lost Ahmed for a bit. We'll just give him a few minutes, maybe, to reconnect. Okay, while we wait for Ahmed, I'm going to launch another poll to find out how many people. So we've seen that about 57% of people have heard of virtual reality before, but now I'd like to know how many people have actually experienced virtual reality before. Personally, I've experienced it in video games, 3 video games at Excitable, and it really blew my mind. So I'm going to launch the poll now. Like usual, you could just go saying yes or no. So we'll just allow, say, 30 seconds, 45 seconds for everyone to vote. Have you experienced virtual reality or augmented reality before? Just giving it a few more seconds. All right. Just let it run for another. Just let it complete a minute, and then I'll take it down. All right. So we're going to end the polls. Okay, so interestingly, we have 64% of participants, 64% of participants have actually experienced virtual reality before, and 36% haven't. This is a very interesting statistic to me because people take virtual reality as a novelty in Nigeria. So it's refreshing, it's rather refreshing to know that people have actually interacted with virtual reality before now. So let's see if, thank you all for voting. So let's see if Ahmed is back now to continue his presentation. Okay, apologies for the disruption. So meanwhile, we're going to have Ugo. Okay, so I'm handing over to Ugo now. Sorry, Ugo, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Sorry about that.
Right,
hi,
thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah. Hi, Adora.
Hi, Ugo.
Yeah, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I kind of noticed that you tilted towards mixed reality, and then my concern is it because Microsoft is more focused towards that particular aspect of immersive technology? And then secondly, which would you consider a more innovative creation? Is it mixed reality or artificial reality or augmented reality in itself? Hi, Adora, can you hear me?
Adora, you're muted. If you're talking, we can't hear you.
While we wait for Adora, I would try to dive into, bear in mind that I'm more of a legal expert when it comes to technology, and by no means do I get my hands dirty when it comes to development of technology in itself. I would say, okay, Gerard is even here, and I would probably put the question to Gerard. Gerard, when it comes to, in your research, which do you think it's a more innovative? Okay, I think Adra is trying to reconnect, but before that, Gerard, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Yeah,
you.
I was saying that I noticed that Adra talked about mixed reality with major emphasis when it comes to this whole angle of immersive technology. And so my concern is when it comes to augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality, which would you consider more innovative? And when it comes to the angle of it, it's been applied to mainstream, which do you project to have a more global impact, basically, just from your own point of view?
Okay, so for VR, virtual reality, you don't have the physical world. You're completely surrounded by something which is virtual, totally. So your interaction is really limited. Okay, you can see the whole world. You can think that you are in
in a real space, but you are in a virtual space. I'll give you an example. My daughter, I gave her a headset to wear, and then she saw a toy, and she just walked into the toy, and she walked into the wall. Okay, so that's virtual reality. So it doesn't bring in the real world into your experience. And then you have augmented and you have mixed reality, which are better, which are more, I would say more innovative, because you can interact with the virtual world and the real world. So in terms of safety, in terms of innovation, in terms of the reach and things you can do, it's kind of less limited interaction with mixed reality and augmented reality. So I'll go for mixed reality.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Sorry, something happened to my phone actually died, so I had to switch back to the laptop I was using initially. So I kind of agree with Gerald as well. Just because of that element of having the best of both worlds in that scenario, I would say I would go with the angle of choosing AR and mixed reality as opposed to VR, because VR completely immerses you in a different digital experience, which in my opinion gives you limits to some things that AR and MR would, on the other hand, unlock opportunities for.
Okay, thank you very much. I can see that Hamid is available now. Hamid, is your connection okay now?
Yep, it's good now.
Okay, I think you're driving in on maybe the misconceptions when it comes to virtual reality and the likes, but I'll give you the floor now. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Yep. Yeah, so one of the misconceptions is older workers will be left behind if they cannot adapt. I mean, this is true in some sense, because you look at it that if an organization really start to use XR, start to use AR, apply this technology, what about those older generation workers that are just new to this technology? What happened to them? But then really, here you start to see a very interesting graph, right? Because one of the graphs you start starting to see is that unemployment rate is actually increasing. You can see it increasing from the Q4 of 2017 went up to Q3 of 2020. You can see that increasing gap. And what you're seeing here is skill gap is one of the major drivers for unemployment. I mean, if you don't have skills, you won't be employed. But then older workers have a high level of expertise, and then 6 out of 10 jobs are based on skill gap. That is, if an organization wants to hire a skilled person, you can see that skilled person, they probably go for 5 unskilled people just to bridge that gap of that one skilled person. And again, experience is invaluable to most organizations. XR is also an enhancer, not a replacer. So XR is, as I said earlier, is a combined term for AR, VR, MR, and it involves gadgets, right? So you can put gadgets on the table and it won't do anything. The gadget needs to be on someone before you can perform that task. So it's not a replacer, it's an enhancer. And then you also look at this graph, we talk about demand and supply. So the blue graph is our RGDP for Nigeria, which is our real gross domestic product. It shows, I mean, what you're producing versus what's our unemployment rate. And then you can see there's a huge gap in unemployment rate versus what Nigeria is actually producing. So what we say is other workers' job won't become obsolete. Rather, other workers will become content creators. They have change of jobs, they have increasing expertise. So what I mean by this is, so you can have an unskilled worker be at the field, and you can have the skilled personnel at home or at the office or on his desk. So the unskilled worker is using the AR, VR, MR devices, and then the skilled worker, which is the old worker, is on his desk. So what happened with this is the skilled labor, the skilled worker can now start passing information through remote assistance to the unskilled worker, and then you have that change of job, and you have XR remote expertise. Unemployment goes down as XR bridges the skill gap. So companies can just decide to, you know what, I'm getting 5 unskilled labor, because they know, okay, if they have one skilled labor, which is the older worker, they can easily use XR for remote expertise. And when people say virtual reality is only for gamers and geeks, but yeah, we have a use case from Boeing. So Boeing have designed flight simulator using VR, so you can see them training some pilots for some test flights procedures. You also see Ford here. This was recent, where Ford was using the Microsoft holographic technology. That's with the Microsoft HoloLens to prototype new vehicles. And also, yeah, you see, I mean, this became really rampant during this whole COVID era. You get to see people in virtual spaces, meet, and it's even much more collaborative than just having Zoom calls or Google Meet calls or team meetings. With this, you get to have that presence. And yeah, this is a graph from PwC, where the PwC saying a delivery report, where it was projected from study that by 2030, VR AR has the potential to add 1.5 trillion US dollars to the global GDP. And then you can totally explore this report on PwC.com/saying delivery report. And then yeah, I'll be sharing real world AR VR use cases and ROI examples. So yeah, we get to see Trimble XL10. So Trimble is a company, and they are really more like a mixture, a AR/VR type of company, but now tailored towards architecture and really for architectural use cases. And then yeah, they partnered with HoloLens. They did something with Microsoft. So what they did, I mean, there's this trend that really now we're starting to see more of building information modeling when you want to actually construct a building. And then workers need to go to these construction sites with their laptops, they need to carry it around. And carrying this laptop around, I mean, it hinders the work process. So you need to touch a beam, and then you carry your laptop around. It's just not engaging as fast as for the workers what they want. So what they did here is they designed a custom headset where they could really join the Microsoft HoloLens with an helmet. So the HoloLens now replaces the physical laptop they have in their hand. So they could walk around, they're hands-free now, and they could start projecting what they want to see. And then when you see this, you have time savings, you have increased engagement, and buying among diverse stakeholders. Now you could add context to structural data and remote collaboration. Now what I mean by adding context to structural data, that means that you could really overlay information, like you could see the stress of building in real time, because now it's mixed reality and you could apply AI to it. And also here we have Lockheed Martin, who designed military jets. And then, yeah, what they did here was they partnered with Scope AR for doing operations. So this is a panel where you have to drill. So what they did here was, most time when they get new staffs, they need to train them on, okay, you need to know this is a particular bolt you do, this is a particular type of I mean, boats come in different sizes, that 20 50 and different sizes of that boat that they need to drill. So they need to run through training processes for their new staff. But with the Microsoft HoloLens, they could really just put the headset on their head and they could just walk and have to see the circles, the blue, the green. So they just know exactly what they're going to. And when they did this, they could see 85% training reduction time, 35% labor reduction. And something similar here to for talk applications, right? Because when you want to work on all these kind of complex shuttle systems, you need to apply the right amount of torque, right amount of force to most of these panels, right? So what they did there with the HoloLens also is they could really map out some of these points, and when they apply the right torque, it turns from red to green, and it's really speed up. It speed up the whole manufacturing process. And when they did this also, they could see 6 weeks of activities completed in 2 weeks, and also 50% labor reduction. And also something also from them is identifying cable and its fasteners. So they have almost 60,000 fasteners installed, and it's using AR/VR technology, they could easily identify these cables And from it, they could see time saving from 3 techs, 8 shifts to 3 techs, 6 hours. So 8 shifts there means doing 12 hours a day. So they could just do it to take technicians to 6 hours, and they saw 91% touchdown labor reduction. Now, when they add this kind of very good use case, NASA awarded them sales new around shuttle contracts. Something here also from AR application in Legoland for Denmark. If you're familiar with Lego, that toy. So with this, you can just go to Legoland and this toy can guide you around without you actually having physical tour guide. So prevent long waiting time. You also have reduced worker stress for the tour labor guide. And something very good here is also from Visionary. Some very good is also from Visionary 777, where they have smart farming. So you could point your iPad at this screen, and then you can see the pH level of the plants and start to adjust it. Really use case. Now, so what is the key step to actually driving XR ROI? So now you have a company, or you're working in a company, you're having a startup, and you want to jump into XR, and XR here means ALV or MR, and how do you drive your ROI for it? So the first thing you need to do is you need to undergo your XR project analysis. So the first thing is getting the metrics, right? So what problem are you trying to solve? Is it time consuming? So for example, the Lockheed Martin project where they did for NASA, the 60,000 cable harness fastener, it was time consuming, right? Or the one of the dock application, does it involve complex instructions? Or are you trying to simplify labor intensive process? Now, when you define your metric, okay, this is exactly my problem. It's time consuming, it involves complex instructions, or I'm trying to simplify labor intensive process. Then now we now compare that your metrics that you've just gotten to an existing metrics. So the existing metric you're trying to compare it with is, are you saving cost? So even if it's time consuming, right? So am I saving cost when I do it? Or am I reducing work time? Does it mean more work for the technician, or does it mean less work? And what does it mean for the workforce? Does it mean that I'm going to reduce my workforce? Does it mean I'm going to have to increase my workforce? And then you now go in and get your buy-in from stakeholders, just to ensure accountability. You define your stakeholder registry, and then when you have all this data, then you can now proceed to actually now determine this is my ROI. So I'm going to run through this again just to make it clear. So I'm going to use a simple use case, which is the Lockheed Martin use case for the Orion shuttle. Now, Orion shuttle has 60,000 cable harness fastener, right? Now they have to determine it is time consuming. They've gotten their metrics. Now, that means the metric is they're trying to simplify a time consuming process. Now they move to the next stage, which is, okay, what are they comparing these metrics with? So, which is their workers assemble these fasteners. It took them X amount of time, and then they check, are we reducing the work time? Now, if you've gotten these metrics, then you now proceed to that stakeholder, and then easily, once you've gotten these two data, you can move to a stakeholder and tell them, oh, as stakeholder, I'm trying to build an XR app or an AR/VR app that is going to reduce time, and is going to reduce time by 92%, 50%. And once you do this, you can get your ROI. And thank you. So you can follow me on Twitter at Ahmed Aru, or LinkedIn at Ahmed Aru Sheikh. And if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. Thank you so much. I'm personally looking forward to when I could have a meeting using one that is going to apply, but that's on a lighter note. So just to remind everyone, you can still ask your questions using the Q&A section. And for the reference, please write the name of the people who would like to answer the question while posting your questions. Okay, so now I'm going to invite the next speaker. His name is Ugochukwu Nwaokike. He's a fintech lawyer, an associate of the firm, and a tech enthusiast. He has worked on numerous projects to drive innovation and promote the use of technology in everyday activities. So I'm going to, sorry, 1 minute. I'm going to hand over to Ugo. Now, Ugo, are you ready for us?
Yes, Sharon.
All right. So,
thank you, Adora. Thank you, Hamid, for your presentation. For me, I really can't wait to the point where we'll probably adopt immersive technologies, mixed reality, augmented reality, and VR into our day-to-day activities. But we'll be looking at it now from more of the legal concerns that affect the adoption of virtual reality in our businesses. And according to Gartner Inc., it said that virtual reality would be a mainstream adoption in the next 5 years. And okay. And we all know that the virtual space is an entirely different world. It cuts across continental boundaries, and obviously it will lead to scores of legal issues. And it may also disrupt the current status quo when it comes to existing legal frameworks. But some people would also argue that the existing regulations that we have, or the existing regulatory frameworks or landscape that we have, can still apply to immersive technologies. But our emphasis today would be focusing on ways companies can leverage on these new technologies to enhance their business, obviously while considering certain legal factors as it affects their employees, as it affects the product that they want to optimize, the community as it relates to the regulation and the government, and the customers when it relates to their data. So from the insightful discovery from Adora's and Hamid's presentation, would have observed that certain industries have begun to adopt virtual reality for some of their product features at the back end. And for me, that is classically a concept of a digital transformation. If we look at it narrowly, find out that digital transformation has been applied across many industries. When you look at the entertainment industry, and when you look at, say, for instance, the taxi driving industry. For entertainment, you would see the emergence of Netflix, which is a high visibility example. What Netflix has done is that it has even reduced the cost of viewing entertainment content per hour as compared to the old blockbuster video rental models. And Uber has obviously reduced the timeline for which a user would actually request. Yes, please.
All right, Ugo, your internet seems shaky. Do we give you some time to reconnect?
Can you hear me now?
Okay, we're just going to give Ugo a few seconds to reconnect. Thank you.
Can you hear me now, Sharon? Maybe I should have removed my video, so perhaps it will be better now. Can you hear me?
Much better.
Can hear you.
Okay.
Go on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So basically, I was saying that various industries have adopted digital transformation when it comes to their different products, and I was using examples like Netflix, example Uber, basically. And research even says that globally or statistically, the adoption of digital transformation across industries would reach an impact of over $2 trillion US. But an essential requirement is that as companies seek to adopt digital transformation strategies when it comes to their business offerings, they would have to consider one key angle, which is building sustainable partnership. And in building these sustainable partnerships, there will be consideration for how your current online services will be performed through these channels that connect your users or customers to an alternative immersive environment like the VR that we're talking about. Because if you go down back to history, you will notice that in the advent of computers came Windows OS. And what Windows OS offered technology companies was an opportunity to plug into their operating system to enhance. And it didn't end there. If you also go to the .com era, you would have noticed that we all had to improve our brick and mortar services online by plugging to the World Wide Web. And with that came various ways to interact with the World Wide Web through introduction of programming languages. And even in the early 2000s, you would notice that the finance industry, after the crash, had to find ways to innovate on their services, and that led to what we probably know as the fintech space and the likes. And but the interesting thing about it is that while at the beginning it seems like these innovations would transform the entire status quo and disrupt the existing practices, it changes over time to show that the traditional incumbent industry enablers find ways to collaborate with this innovative technology. So for instance, in the banking space, we have things about open banking, AI, and the likes. Now, if we move closer down to our current dispensation, you would notice that blockchain, cryptocurrency, AI that we're talking about today, and the likes are another use cases that we're asking, how can we find a way to partner with existing infrastructures? A key angle here is that unlike the operating system for Windows or like the World Wide Web or other technological infrastructures, a question that I think the panelists will be able to answer would be, would we be required to build or enhance our product to adopt to these immersive technologies from scratch? Or would there be existing infrastructures that we just need to plug into so that we can further benefit our customers? Because one thing is, not everybody will be able to build a HoloLens, not everybody will be able to build a Windows 10 mixed reality or an Oculus Rift or a Google Glasses or even Watson. So we need to begin to determine how our students can plug into these immersive platforms. And with that partnership in mind, and a concern is the Nigerian syndrome. Obviously, we have to give it to firms like ours who is trying to go beyond just competing when it comes to revenue, but also finding ways to engage when it comes to research. But traditionally, the Nigerian business landscape do not have huge research appetite, so they can't really expand when it comes to expand technological frontiers. Well, at the end of the day, we find out that because of how large and huge the Nigerian market is, these large international organizations or technology platforms still need to find a way, a local reach of engaging our own Nigerian market. So you see Netflix, for instance, creating a Netflix Nigeria, and with that would mean that competing cinemas and the likes, while they compete in overlapping products, we need to have found ways to engage and partner with Netflix when it comes to distribution of content. And so my question now would be, if I am a business who wants to adopt these virtual reality technologies to improve my product offerings, and I probably need to plug into maybe a Microsoft infrastructure platform or a Google infrastructure platform. As much as I want to plug into this platform, the legal mindset is that you can't trust blindly. So you have to know, for instance, that in engaging these platform providers, you would have to have your NDA, which is your non-disclosure agreement, in place. And it will contain certain clauses such as ownership requirement and proprietary as to the product scope or the IP that you want to share when it comes to innovating on your product. It will contain some things as to certain disclosure arrangements as when would these companies be able to disclose some of the things that I've shared with them as it relates to my product, and also things on non-compete. So we can't, because of these platforms probably have a large customer base, shy away from putting those NDAs in place to protect our own IP. But aside from building a sustainable partnership with these infrastructure providers, other business initiatives that we need to adopt when it comes to this digital transformation roadmap are things like finding ways to engage our customer base by leveraging on data to improve customer experience. We also need to find ways to empower employees by enabling greater and more mobile productivity and collaboration. We need to optimize our operations. So automating and simplifying our business processes across sales, operations, and finance is essential. And in doing all this, or taking advantage of all these initiatives, would find ways to transform those products and business services. And again, the off-the-shelf contract by these technical platforms would not work. We need to obviously share our data with these platforms. And in doing that, we're going to be synchronizing, i.e., for instance, our contact with them so that both brands can enjoy our unique product features. We're also going to be making available some technical specifications that are available for our own platform so that they can develop and build on it. And in doing that, will come certain legal concerns that we need to look at. We need to look at the IP. We need to look at the warehousing and processing of this data. We need to look at some third-party feature outsourcing product that will be utilized in developing these new innovative technologies for our products. And we also need to look at how we can limit our liabilities and claims. And in especially looking at the data angle comes privacy and confidentiality. So unique scenario is that at the end of the day, when you optimize or transform your product and your users can access your product through an immersive technology, they obviously will have to share their information maybe about their age, their location, their race. And in doing this, they would have formed some sort of digital footprint, and this can be used to identify them in reality. And all those things is what we would have termed as a personal data. And so to ensure that you don't fall under certain regulatory non-compliance, you would need to ensure that your terms and conditions agreement has made a requirement or a permission for them for you to use your product to collect their data and also share it for specific purposes. Some companies try to make a blanket use of this data, but they would need to be very careful on that note, because the NDPR, which is the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, has found a way to limit the scope of how you can use or share the data of personal users. Also, the NDPR, which is an innovation of NITDA, which is the Nigerian Information Technology and Development Agency, is quite similar with the General Data Protection Regulation. However, some of the differences that I would note is the fact that while our NDPR talks more on personal data of natural persons, the General Data Protection Regulation focuses more on biometric data, but in the real sense, they all mean the same thing, as long as you are leveraging or processing certain personal information of natural persons, specifically natural persons, not legal entities when it comes to businesses or incorporated companies. Then you fall under the scope of the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. And some of the things you would need to consider, or some of the major features of the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, which your company will need to observe as you embark on your digital transformation product, is the fact that security is very critical. So as you're involved in processing or controlling the data of your customers, you need to ensure that you put certain security in place. You have to protect your systems from hackers. You have to set up firewalls. You have to store data securely with access to obviously specific authorized individuals. You have to employ proper data encryption technologies. You have to develop efficient organizational policy for handling personal data and other sensitive or confidential data and the likes. Another second feature is the consent. The Nigerian Constitution, Section 37, talks about the privacy of individuals and right to life, but it never considered the electronic angle when it comes to consent for use of processing of a natural person's data. But interestingly, the NPRA has obviously given a front leap on that. And in a recent case in Godfrey versus MTN, the Court of Appeal held that sharing a subscriber's phone number without the subscriber giving consent amounts to a violation of the subscriber's right to privacy. So as a company, you need to be aware of ensuring that there's a consent. And then you need to also know that your data subject, which is the natural person, the right to information about their personal data. They have right to access their personal data at any time. They have the right of rectification of the information, which means to review and edit or change. They have the right to withdraw their consent. They have a right to object, and they have a right to data portability and the right to be forgotten. Data portability here means that they have a right to request that the data they've collected from them can be shared to other platforms electronically. And the right to be forgotten obviously means ensuring that after complying with the requirements that your company has with certain regulators when it comes to storing of particular information, you have to erase those data. And other obligations that you would also need to be aware of as you upscale or adopt these digital transformation technologies is that the data controller is, according to the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation, is liable to the data subject for any third-party processing agreement or arrangement. So in the event that I am not processing the data or my company not processing the data, but I need to plug into another data processor, I would bear the liability of that data processor as deemed in the Nigerian Data Protection Regulation. But obviously, there are legal ways to restructure this. So that means that in your contract arrangement or data processing agreement with these third-party data processors, you need to ensure that your liability and indemnity clause are really, really watertight to cover you from such liability. You will also have the obligation to display a privacy and data policy on your platform. And it should have certain key features, such as how you intend to process or collect the data of your customers and the purpose in which you want to use that data. And you obviously have to conduct some data compliance audit and filings, and your storage has to be uptight. And in doing the angle of compliance and auditing, our firm is obviously able to provide such services. We develop digital compliance protection development strategy for companies, and we also ensure that we file this audits with the Nigerian Information Technology Development Agency, NITDA, in line with the NDPR. Now, going further, you would notice that we talked about how to adopt digital transformation on the roadmap. You need to empower your employees by enabling a more mobile, productive, and collaboration workforce. So that means that in doing that, there are certain legal factors that you need to also consider, such as the data privacy and security of your employees. So in developing automated operations or process, or even collaborative tools within your organization, you need a 360 data protection compliance development and strategy. And your end-to-end product design should have characteristics that allays your consumers about their data concerns. And this is more like an outward look. And internally too, you also have to protect your employees' personal data. So you'd have to build a trust system, an efficient process for monitoring and reporting processes when there are security lapses or data breach or violations or even attacks. And you have to create avenues for secured red flagging or whistleblowing by defaulting employees, to avoid any form of alignment from those defaulters. Also, as you adopt these virtual tools or ARs for seamless collaboration in your workflow or your processes, you need to understand, because most offices now work remotely, and so there are leeways for employees to bring their own device or use their own devices anywhere. and there are some company-owned personal-enabled devices. So you need to have clear-cut policies for this. Bring your own device policies, company-owned personal-enabled device policies should also be in place. And this is because some of the standard virtual reality tools or even collaborative tools that we have online, their policies may not be adequate. We would know that obviously sometimes the company administrators, in order to ensure that the data of their customers are well protected from mischievous employees, would have to monitor certain uses. And in doing all this, you want to be clear to your employees on what you would have to assess or what actions they would take that would trigger you to monitor or restrict them from certain assets. And this would help limit, obviously, liability claims. As an employer too, you also need to be careful because all these things are things that have to be drafted in your policy, your organizational policies, in your contract and the likes. So as an employer too, you need to also be careful because the NDPR notes that you would need their consent when there's certain data. And in the event that they would not be given that consent, you need to also make clear what those implications would be for them. And it has to be free from coercion. But notwithstanding, for any consent that has been given prior to any withdrawal, you are allowed to process their information for those periods. Another outlook that I'll be looking at when companies are considering digital transformation, and this is a more global outlook, is the angle of investment and acquisition. And when it comes to the antitrust angle for regulators. Interesting, Nigeria Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Act is available and very comprehensive when it comes to consumer protection and even competition. But essentially, when it comes to things like technology, we have some of these major platform technologies, and we need to ensure that while they engage or enter into our markets, they do not enter to the detriment of other micro competitors. So there have to be innovative ways to check this. Some level of vertical integration when it comes to acquisition has to be checkmated. You want to prevent them from probably also having a platform as well as a product, because that means that they'll probably give some bias to their own products more than they'll give to other existing products. We'll have that. And that also brings us to regulatory foresight. We obviously are aware of the challenges that comes with regulation, but regulation is necessary to ensure that there is investor buy-ins and consumer certainty and the likes, and or confidence. And interestingly, we saw what happened with the motorbike hailing in Lagos, where there was restriction on motorbikes across various aspects in Lagos. So you would need key legal experts to ensure that you have efficient business and continuity management as regulatory requirements, and you need to have these strategies in place when you're developing these new product features for your digital transformation. There obviously also would be stakeholders conflict, and these new partnerships with probably these infrastructure platform providers and the likes would create conflict with existing partners. Because existing partners probably would have agreements with you for non-circumvention, non-compete, or they may even have exclusive license to your product. And so you need to ensure that you have bespoke legal practitioners or experts who can mitigate the effect of this conflict, because when it goes on your business output, so your legal expert has to find creative ways of mitigating both parties' competing interests. They have to skillfully determine when they should probably even reserve some of your demands and empathize the other party's perspective, as well as explore amicable ways to resolve such investment disputes. But they also have to be firm. They have to have a reputation to be able to strongly litigate your claims when your interest is necessary. So lawyers also need to be aware that as companies come to meet you to probably provide legal advisory for adoption of these different software technologies to improve their businesses, you cannot just adopt the basic template terms or clauses. You have to be innovative. You need to consider all angles that may affect your client when it comes to, is it a work for hire? When it comes to IP angle, or is it a work under employment, or who would have ownership, source code requirements, escrows, and who will have proprietary ownership of this product when they are built. Those are considerations for your lawyers. Other legal implications, obviously, that apply now would be the criminal angle or the tortious liability, because as you build this product, you need to be careful. And this is where in your life cycle development of your product, your lawyer has to be side by side with your developers in providing key information on compliances and regulations, so that at the end of the day, you don't build a product which you probably have to find ways to now bypass or build afresh because of certain non-compliance with certain regulations. So you need to ensure that there are no libelous content or discriminations or any kind of biases that could affect your consumers' rights. And then a large angle is the intellectual property rights or concerns angle. Now, the intellectual property right angle or the IP asset angle has two perspectives to it. The first perspective is when I'm offering my product idea for development after my scoping and breaking it down into the user experience, and I give a developer who owns this property. You need to be defined. If you probably have in-house developers, you need to clearly define it in your contract, because it's a requirement in the Copyright Act that any work that they have built belongs to you. So you have to have clauses that have an abstract assignment of all the rights to your company. But another angle when it comes to IP infringement or intellectual property would be when your product is being utilized by your customers. And an interesting use cases for VR is that you would find that when you build a VR product, you would give your customers the right to probably insert images, insert content. This content may be creations of other creatives, and it's invariably the IP rights. So you would need to find a way to limit these things. For instance, YouTube use cases create scenarios where you would have to give copyright notifications or infringement, and you'll have some takedown processes and the like. So those things have to be clearly cut out in your terms of use or conditions for your customers. I would say, regulatory speaking, if you look at the US Digital Millennium Rights Act, it kind of provides a kind of safe harbor for online service providers, that is intermediaries that create a platform for users to engage. It gives them a lead where if certain content infringe on other parties or third-party IP, they would not be liable insofar as they are now aware of those infringements. We don't have a similar application in Nigeria, but one that's closely related is Section 16 of the Nigerian Copyright Act, which states that once there's an infringement claim and you can prove that you are not aware of such infringement, you may not be liable to pay for damages for such infringement, but you may be required to disclose or account for profits of such infringement to the infringing party who is claiming certain damages. There are a lot of scenarios that we need to consider when we look at this thing, because also comes the angle of trademarks. When certain people, for instance, buy certain words that are connected or logo that are connected to another company on your platform, your virtual platform, what happens in that case? We need to push our litigation frontiers more to, and our regulations to probably define that. In US, standard case is that if that content is not related to commerce, then there's no infringement. And some come from the angle of fair use. In Nigeria, we don't really have a fair use, but we have a fair dealing, and it's slightly limited to broadcasting and research. But there are various ways to engage your legal experts to find ways for you to navigate some of this regulatory landscape. But at the end of the day, in conclusion, would need to understand that as we build products that adapt to these VR technologies and even more emerging technologies that will come in future, and as we embrace this technological innovation, we need to always be aware of the attendant legal issues and always have your legal advisors close by to help you navigate these processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Okay, I noted that you spoke on data breaches, confidentiality, but I really like that you brought up whistleblowing, because I feel that when there's a system and defaulters are listed, but these defaulters are not, there's no way of finding these defaulters and finding them out and penalizing them. The system is like doomed to fail. So thank you so much for that insightful session. Before we proceed, I would like to share yet another poll in anticipation of Mr. Kyo's presentation. So, sorry, just give me a minute. And the question I'm asking is, what industry do you think will adapt fastest to virtual reality or adopt it in their processes? So I'm going to let this run for about a minute. What industries do you think are going to adapt fastest to virtual reality? I've listed a few, so we're constrained to pick between the government, entertainment industry, law, medicine, and others. So just give it about a minute. You can vote. The polling section is at the bottom of your screen. All right, just a few more seconds and I'll close it and carry on. All right, so I think we can end the poll now. It's without surprise that a lot of people voted the entertainment industry. I personally think it should be the tourism industry, because I see a lot of virtual trips planned. 2 days ago, I took a virtual tour of Paris. It was it was a great experience. I just wish I could be able to travel myself. So thank you so much for voting and sharing your opinions. I'm going to introduce our final speaker of the day. Sorry, just give me a minute. Yes, so we have Mr. Gerald Kyo. He's a virtual reality researcher, and sorry, just give me a minute. Once again, apologies for the disruption. So Mr. Kyo did his master's in digital signage and image processing, and he's also doing his PhD in computer vision in the University of Central Lancashire. So I'm going to be handing over to Mr. Kyo, who is passionate about technology as how it applies to businesses. So Mr. Kyo, are you ready for us?
Yes, I think so. So I'm getting my slides ready now, my screen sharing. I just want to ask if you can see the full screen. Can you see the full screen?
We can.
Yes, we
Okay.
can see us.
Okay. So thank you, Sharon. My name is Gerald Keo. I am a research associate at York University, Canada, and I also lecture in computer science at the same university. So I'm going to talk about application of VR and AR in education, healthcare, and justice system. Summary of my talk will be introduction on how we perceive things in the real world, and then how VR and AR come to mimic real world perception. And then I'll be going on to various VR and AR devices. VR and AR applications will follow. There I'll show videos, very interesting videos about various applications in various areas I'm talking about. And then I'll conclude. So, how do we perceive things in real world? We have two eyes separated by some distance called interpupillary distance, or IPD. So each eye senses the real world. In the real world, we have 3 dimensions. Every object has a width, a height, and a depth. Okay, so that's 3D. And then each eye has senses a 2-dimensional image, but each image that the eye senses is different. So you can see in these illustrations that images, okay, within these boxes, you have differences in the content of the image, and also in this smaller box. So what happens is that our brains use the differences called parallax in these stereo images to help us perceive distances and sizes of objects in real life scenes. And this is an illustration of what happens. So each eye fixates at this relatively at this point, and then the images, 2D images imposed on each retina is like this. Okay, so the brain uses these differences to help us perceive the world in 3 dimensions. The same thing happens when we listen to sounds. So the brain works out the differences in what the ears perceive, the intensities and the phase or time delay. And then with this information, the brain is able to work out where the sound is coming from, okay, and how far from us the sound source is. So what VR and AR displays do is that they try to simulate what happens in real life, in the sense that they present, in case of this vision, they present 2 different images to each eye. Each eye sees a different images. So when they do that, they ensure that each eye, the right eye does not see what the left eye is supposed to see. The left eye does not see what the right eye is supposed to see. So they use things like shutter glasses, which are active 3D glasses. They use LCD panels to shut at very high frequency, okay, shut off and switch on the display, the glasses. And then we have also anaglyph glasses, which are color filters. We have polarized glasses, polarized filters. Examples are glasses we used in 3D cinema. And then finally, head-mounted displays. Mounted displays deliver content directly to each eye. And conventional displays like the TV monitors, computer monitors, mobile phones we have do not present 2 images. They present 1 image. That's why we don't perceive virtual reality or augmented or virtual reality with conventional displays. Oral content too is delivered to each ear, so we can perceive orally 3D spatial sound. And also, to spice up virtual reality, We can also have haptics, touch, and then olfactory smell stimulation too. So these are examples of virtual reality devices which can be used to deliver virtual reality content. This is a multi-projector display, and with a multi-projector display or single projector display, you need to use glasses to view shutter glasses, and these are polarized glasses. Another kind of VR device is a head-mounted display. The first one is used, completely blocks out the real world from you, so you see everything is virtual to you. And then the next one is a see-through head-mounted display, which you can use for mixed reality and augmented reality. And the third one here is some specialized mobile phones can actually display stereo content to different images. So we have a Google Cardboard. There are also some fancier designs for these to block out content meant for the other eye. And we have a variety of controllers which you can use to really which you can use to communicate or interact with the content you're seeing. Okay, the last class of VR devices are monitors. So this is an actual 3D monitor. You also need glasses to view 3D content here. And then this arrangement is called a stereoscope. This is usually seen or done in the labs, in research labs. So you don't see them in normal life, normal everyday life. Okay, so applications of VR and AR. I'm going to talk about education and training, medicine, healthcare, and then the justice system. I'm going to show you videos which depict real applications of VR and AR in these various fields. And they are found on YouTube. I got them from YouTube. So you can search on YouTube and see various applications. Okay, so developers and researchers continue to create and new uses for VR and AR, and this is supported by investment in display and human-computer interaction technologies, as well as need for this development. VR and AR can be used in safe, secure, and controlled environments. That's why it's attractive. And numerous commercial products, which you are going to see next, are available, and others continue to be explored. So arguably the oldest application of VR is flight simulators used to train pilots, okay? And then next we'll watch a video. This is a chemistry lab. Everything you see is what the user is actually seeing in virtual reality. So this is a SuperChem VR, and I'm going to play it now so you'll see how it works.
Hello, and welcome to the lab.
SuperChem VR is a proof-of-concept, immersive virtual reality chemistry lab. It was developed for commercially available virtual reality systems that include headsets and hand controllers, like the HTC Vive and the Oculus Rift.
Use the trigger with your index finger to grab objects.
Teachers report that learning about chemicals, lab equipment, and how to use the equipment correctly can be a slow process. So SuperChem VR is designed to allow you to learn about these concepts in a safe, interactive, and immersive way. SuperChem VR allows you to recognize lab equipment and associate it with the appropriate tasks. If you don't know what to do, your lab assistant, ChemBot, provides prompts to guide you in the right direction.
Place your flask in this analyzer to check.
You need to perform actual measurements correctly to complete the task, which also gives you practice with lab skills. You can explore and learn safely without being intimidated by a real-life lab where things can break and resources run out.
Please be careful.
And because it's virtual reality, you remain safe, have access to all of the resources you need, and can try again. ChemBot reinforces proper lab conduct by providing information on standard lab practices.
It might be easier to use a beaker to catch the liquid, so you can make small adjustments in the graduated cylinder.
You can scan an object to hear ChemBot explain its purpose in greater detail.
This is a beaker. Use it to hold and transfer liquids from the liquid dispenser. The weight boat can hold solids while they are measured on the balance.
This combination of an immersive and engaging environment with scaffolding for exploring chemistry allows you to have fun while learning.
Activating zero gravity mode. Yay! It glows.
When you finish the reaction, how do you know how well you did? The substance analyzer calculates the percentage of the reaction that was completed correctly.
Nice. Good job.
The brightness of the glow serves as an indicator of how well you completed the steps. The brighter the glow, the more accurate you were. You also have digital lab notes that detail your steps, so you can review your margin of error to identify how to improve.
Okay, so this next one is application in healthcare. It's image-guided therapy developed by Philips and Microsoft.
In the image-guided therapy business of Philips, one patient every single second somewhere on Earth is treated with one of our products. So that's 28 million patients a year could be treated because of the work that we do here. That was the big reason I came to Philips. Image-guided therapy is modern-day surgery without the incision. We're navigating tiny instruments through the body through incisions no larger than a pencil point. We're relying solely on X-ray images or medical imagery to guide us. So that means we are always looking at a screen of data.
With HoloLens, we can take it to the next level. We are a leader in image-guided therapy. And with Azurion, we created an industry-leading platform that customers really love. What's really cool about it is we've leveraged novel touchscreen technology to create a very powerful working spot for the physician. Our ultimate goal is to help doctors do procedures better, to help them innovate the procedure. With HoloLens, we can create a completely different experience, a working domain which is really tailored around the needs of the physician.
For complex procedures, physicians need to go from one screen to the other really rapidly. We can now get these screens to come in just by voice recognition, by eye tracking. This is all about efficiency. If patients are being treated and the procedure can be shortened, it's very beneficial for the patient.
At Philips, we strongly believe that technology is not the goal, technology should be the enabler. What we want is that the physician can just concentrate on the procedure and the patient, get them home faster and healthier. This partnership between Philips and Microsoft can have our users experience something completely new, something almost mind-blowing, something that they didn't think was possible, and help them.
Okay. Sorry about that. So finally, we have use of VR and AR in the justice system. This application is for rehabilitating offenders who have spent decades in prison for serious crimes they committed, and they're being considered for, they might be considered for early release, and they're using it to teach them about the world that has advanced so much within the time they spent in prison.
These 6 men were convicted of murder as teens in the 80s and 90s, so they've never even used smartphones. This year, Colorado created a program to make certain longtime inmates eligible for early release, using virtual reality to practice being on the outside.
Oh, this is almost like real. This is crazy.
Vice News visited the class as the inmates used VR for the first time.
This year marks 26 years. I was 16 when I was arrested.
April will be 23 years, and I caught my case when I was 16.
I committed my crime when I was 17, and I just finished my 31st year.
I had to adapt in a way that no kid should have to.
I worry every day that somehow not ever functioning in society as an adult it's going to be impossible for me.
Today, we'll be trying virtual reality. So it'll be new to you, but it's new to pretty much everyone. How do you feel about elephants? Want to see some elephants?
This is the first class of inmates in Colorado's Second Chance program. Their sentences were so harsh as teens that it was unlikely they'd ever leave prison. But since the early 2000s, the justice system has become more forgiving of young criminals. Now, these men have the chance to be considered for early release if they finish this 3-year program.
So take a look around you for a minute. Looking back of you. Yeah, look, turn around. And is it playing?
Yeah.
Great. And are they walking towards you? Okay, great. Did you feel like you were there?
My stomach is turning. Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That wasn't cool. I wasn't expecting that.
The classes teach them money management and computer skills, but this is the program's main attraction. 360-degree videos get the inmates comfortable with the headsets and show them how much the world has changed.
Why don't we try self-checkout?
Now I'm going to show you how to check out of a grocery store and pay for the groceries you're buying using self-checkout.
And the store trusts the people like that?
Yeah, they do. You know, there's often sometimes someone standing around, but by and large, yeah.
You will scan and bag your groceries yourself. Unless you need help, there's no store employee involved.
What'd you think?
That was amazing. It's like you're in there. I didn't know there was that much trust in the world, but that you can check out your own stuff. But I could stay on one of them things all day.
It's just a way different world than the world I remember. It was, in some ways, depressing how much of the world that you've missed, you know, after a quarter century, you know, has gone by. It's a different planet. Yeah, I would not recognize that as a grocery store.
This is the other type of virtual reality. With what you had on, you could observe, but you weren't really interacting that much. So this is much more about interacting. This one is how to do laundry.
Okay, what am I doing? Separating the whites?
Yeah, let's separate the colors first, and you can put it into one of the other cards.
Oh, damn.
That's okay. Once they're done, you can put them in the dryer.
Ethan Muller started developing virtual scenarios for inmates 2 years ago as VR production became cheaper.
Oh, you're a tough guy, huh? Is that it?
He thinks it's an effective training tool for both sides of criminal justice. He's developing VR to train police officers in conducting traffic stops and de-escalating suicide threats, and to prepare inmates to move between prisons with less anxiety.
If you can take...
Okay, so in conclusion, what are the considerations in developing VR? So for various uses, there is justification and benefits versus cost, and accessibility and awareness considerations too. Awareness, this is what this webinar is about. Then there are also side effects of VR and AR, including simulator sickness or visually induced motion sickness, eye strain, things like eye strain or feeling sick when you use these devices, how they can be mitigated. And then vection, which is self-motion perception. This is the kind of research I do. So what happens in the future? What's our future? So there's continued research into new applications, development of software, hardware and software, as well as content developers, also training of them. Then overcoming physical, financial accessibility and other constraints to be able to apply virtual reality in various spheres of life. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kyo. That was a very, very interesting presentation. And I like that you were able to show that virtual reality can be adopted into more industries than the entertainment industry. Like we've seen how a supermarket was able to adopt it to show people how to do the self-checkout, how in the educational sector where we see tutorials, lots of tutorials on how to do basic things like laundry and medicine. So thank you so much. We've come to the end of the webinar. So I think at this point, we're going to take like 1 or 2 questions because we are behind schedule. So you could ask your questions in the Q&A section. But meanwhile, I'm going to give the final poll for this webinar. And we've seen that people have known about VR for a while. We've seen how it can be applied in different industries. So now what I want to know is you personally, do you see yourself adopting VR in your business? So as usual, I'm going to launch the poll and we'll give 1 minute for everyone to answer. It's a yes or no question. So you can vote using the poll section at the bottom of your screen. Yeah, so we'll allow 1 minute for everyone to vote. Also, leave your questions. You know, I've already seen one question directed to Adora. Okay. Do you see yourself implementing virtual reality in your business? Yes. Give that a few more seconds and we will end the poll. All right, so we've done 1 minute. And I'll end the poll now. It gladdens my heart to see that 82% of our participants see themselves implementing virtual reality in their businesses. So I am deeply gladdened by this because I feel like we now have a deeper understanding of how we can use this to our advantage in our business for brand development, for revenue generation, especially in the tourism industry. So thank you once again for your opinion. Thank you for voting. So now I'm going to go to the questions. Because of time, okay, sorry. Because of time, I think we'll take one question. Sorry, give me a moment. Okay, so One of our panelists would like to answer this question. How virtual reality could be used in the educational sector, in the education sector. So we'll unmute your mic to enable you to speak. 1 minute, please.
Let me answer this question. So personally, if anybody else wants to answer this question when I'm done, in case maybe there's some things that I left out, that would be totally fine. But I'm going to answer this question from the angle of the students, not the school now or the teachers, but more the students. And I'm going to give this very basic example. I'm going to use chemistry as an example. I was in secondary school as a science student, right? I had to be a science student so that I could study the computer science that I wanted to study. But being a science student came with studying chemistry that I hate so much. Something as basic as the periodic table. When they talk about, I mean, everything in this world is made of the basic elements, right? It's the basic elements put together to create compound things. So something like water, we all know is H2O, is hydrogen and oxygen, right? Just imagine if there were virtual reality experiences that, as opposed to sitting in a boring chemistry classroom, reading Ababio and reading all the chemistry books that we did not like to read, you could have these experiences that just wearing a headset basically and interacting with a 3D version of the periodic table, you could, let's say, maybe take out hydrogen from the table, take out oxygen from the table, try and put it together and see if it will create water. And if you mistakenly take out hydrogen and maybe another element that's not supposed to mix and you try to mix it together, it should tell you, oh no, this can't work, and then does something like bounce back, or you hear some kind of error feedback or something that would help you learn by doing, and this example is basically me just saying that AR, VR, MR, all of them, to be honest, promotes immersive learning, which I think is a way for people to actually learn and remember what they've learned, as opposed to just reading and cramming it because last, we all want to pass exam. I think that experience helps people, because at the end of the day, you are not just now learning about the thing, you are feeling the thing, you are immersed in the thing. And those kinds of experiences are things that are harder to depart from you in the long run.
Thank you so much, Adora. Does anyone else want to answer this question? I think we can take one more. There's a question directed to Ahmed. The question says, what AR brands do you recommend for lawyers? I don't know if Ahmed would like to take this.
Yes. So I saw the question, but I'll probably do some clarifications there, right? Because I would like to see what perspective are you coming from. But since you said, I really hope you understand my question. So I'm going to look at it from a part of, okay, let me assume. So I'll assume you mean AR brand for dressing for lawyers. So say you want to go out and then you want to do try on attires, your wig, your shirt. So really, the brand are still going to be normal brand like Nike, like Puma. So your normal companies that produce wigs, that do clothing, they're really starting to adopt AR VR for visualization of these for most of their wares. So I'm not sure if that answered your question on point, or I would say I tried there.
Thank you so much. I see that there's another course of time. We're going to have compiled all the questions. You can still ask questions after the webinar by sending them to our email address, which will be circulated, and the speakers will do their best to answer the questions and circulate to all participants. So we've come to the end of the webinar. I'd like to thank you so much for being with us and taking out time. For taking out this time to spend with us and joining during this webinar. We're going to, like I said, we're going to try and answer all the questions, even the questions sent to the mail. We're going to also circulate the slides as a presentation used by the speakers. And we're going to circulate a recording of this webinar to our respective email addresses. So sorry about that. So are there any final words from anyone, any of our speakers? Anyone like to say anything before we officially conclude? Mr. Ki, are you trying to say something?
No, I was trying to answer Eunice's question, but I sent a text reply to Eunice.
I mean, I think there was also a question there that I skipped, so I'd just like to answer it briefly before we go out. Hope that's cool. Okay, cool.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so I think at Eunice, you asked how we could apply XR in law or legal. So I think a good one is we could look at it from what Jared said, or also we could look at it from training modules. I think that's really going to be a great use case because you go to law school and then you could see how, I'm sure VR can be adopted there. I think that's it.
Okay, on that note, I'm really sorry about this, but I have to ask this one particular question that was asked. And the participant would like to know how do you address the fear of employees who will be worried that this technology would limit employment opportunities? So Ahmed, would you like to speak to that before we round up the session?
No, I didn't get that. Can you recap?
Okay, so I think the question is basically saying with the advent of new technology, it makes certain jobs or job descriptions redundant. So the person is asking, how can employees' expectations be managed to mitigate these fears?
No, I mean, so as I said in my slide, right? I mean, XR is only an enhancer. It just means your workers get to do work more effectively. So, I mean, if you could get 10 workers to do more tasks. So, I mean, I see it as not removing current workers, but I see it as actually giving your current workers superpowers to do the company work better and efficient, also effectively.
All right, thank you, Ahmed, for your response. So in essence, Ahmed is telling us that virtual reality is not coming to take away our jobs, it's not coming to limit opportunities, but it's coming to enhance performance in your current job description. So on that note, once again, thank you everyone and enjoy the rest of your day.